Make no doubt about this, and have no doubts, that the proposal before us is a step, a very significant step towards ending Social Security and Medicare. If that's what the American people want, well, we shall see.
Gentleman from Texas.
I continue to reserve.
Gentleman continues to reserve. Gentleman from Colorado.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel.
Gentleman from New York for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman. You know, this is political theater at its worst. This bill has no chance of becoming law. It's extreme. It was put together so that the Speaker could pick up the last 2 or 3 votes from the extreme element of the Republican Party. We refuse to be held hostage, and the American people refuse to be held hostage. Let me say to my Republican colleagues, why don't you try working with us? Why don't you try to work with the Democrats? Why don't we kind of move to the sensible middle and have a bill that can pass? This is what the American people want us to do. They are sick of the political posturing. They are sick of this day in and day out. We are now bringing our country to the brink of financial disaster because of cheap political games. Meet us in the middle. In order to balance our budget, we need to have a cut in spending, yes, but we also need to have those who can afford to pay more, pay a little more, and we need to close corporate tax loopholes, not protect the rich. My Republican friends want to balance the budget on the backs of the middle class, want to tell seniors that Medicare as we know it will be destroyed, want to tell our students that they cannot get Pell Grants. We don't want to do this. Pass a clean debt ceiling. That's what we need to do. We did it 18 times under Reagan and 8 times under Bush. We ought to do it again now and stop the political charade.
Time's expired. Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The reason why we're here today is because we're spending too much money. Another reason why we're here today is because the Democratic Party and the members, many of them who have spoken today, took $500 billion out of Medicare, and that's why that system is in real trouble. Republicans will save Medicare, not bankrupt it like our friends the Democrats have done. I reserve my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Colorado.
Thank you. I'd like to inquire the gentleman from Texas. We have just under 2 minutes left for our closing. Does the gentleman have any remaining speakers?
I thank the gentleman for asking. I will be the last speaker, and I will allow you to lead that way, and then I'll close.
Thank you. I yield myself the remainder of my time.
Gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, in response to the claim of the gentleman from Texas with regards to saving Medicare, well, if ending Medicare is one way of saving it, I guess that would be consistent. In fact, the Republican package that was passed in this House phased out Medicare. Nobody under 55 would receive Medicare. By definition, Medicare is a medical insurance program for seniors. It would be replaced with a voucher that would pay for part of private insurance that seniors would need to get, but it would no longer be Medicare. It would no longer exist. So certainly, getting rid of Medicare, if you consider that a way of saving it, the Republican budget will do that. But if you want to save Medicare, it requires cutting costs and investing in the system and making it work for more American families. Again, what we have before us today, Madam Speaker, is not a solution. It's further political machinations of a House. Rather than talking to the President, rather than talking to the Senate, unfortunately, the Speaker of this body has chosen to talk to 5 or 6 people, move the bill further away from the middle, further away from what the President will sign, further away from what the Senate will pass, with only 3.5 days left. 3.5 days left before what? 3.5 days left before this country jeopardizes our credit rating and our good standing as a nation that pays interest on our debt. And just as American families, when your credit score gets messed up, you pay more, taxpayers will pay more if this bill passes. Madam Speaker, it's been estimated that the approximately 1% interest rate increase that a downgrade from AAA to AA would provide will cost taxpayers over $1 trillion over 10 years. And this bill will increase the deficit by $100 billion. I urge a no vote on the rule and the bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time's expired. Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the conjecture the gentleman has made and extrapolated this out of what this bill would do. In fact, that's not what the bill does at all. The bill says that we will approach in a reasonable way and respect to the American taxpayer and to the marketplaces with a plan that will put America on sound financial footing which would be the envy of the world, which is part of what the Republican Party would choose to do. Madam Speaker, once again, this rule provides the necessary flexibility for Republican leadership needs to ensure that we do not fault on our obligations in the next 4 days. Republicans will continue to provide sound, balanced, and real leadership and to pass solutions, while I believe the President continues on the pathway, along with the Democratic parties we've heard here today, of tax increases and job-killing ideas. With over 14 million Americans unemployed, a $1.4 trillion projected deficit this year, and over $14 trillion in debt, our current financial policies are simply not working. I don't know why we think we would continue doing what we've been doing when it doesn't work, but perhaps that's what our friends the Democrats want to do. We as Republicans disagree. So I'm asking the Democratic colleagues, our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, to join their Republican colleagues and me for real physical change, cutting spending, reducing government programs. Each of these help us encourage economic growth, not just as we heard in Rogers, Arkansas, but all over this country. It does work, putting Americans back to work. Madam Speaker, I'd like to, if I could, ask unanimous consent to insert in the record Texas bucks national unemployment trends because they do things that balance out the marketplace.
Without objection.
I applaud our Speaker, the gentleman from Ohio, John Boehner, for his hard work and commitment to the American people and those people here in the House of Representatives who will do their duty and provide for real and conservative solutions, market-based answers, to get our economy back on track. Madam Speaker, this Republican House will not raise taxes. We will not raise spending. We will not yield to the old ways of taxing and spending and not listening and then thinking we know better than others. We're for the free enterprise system. We're for families back home. We're for job growth and real meaningful opportunities for future of our children, and that is what we stand for. So, we are here today. Yes, we'll stay in town till we get our job done. We're the people that believe in the free enterprise system. We're the people that believe in people back home. And we're the people that are going to say no to Washington, D.C., taxing, spending, big wasteful government. We are the people, the Republican Party. The elephants are in town, and we've got a great memory. We know what works. So, Madam Speaker, I encourage a yes vote on the rule, and I move the previous question on the resolution.
The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution, and those in favor will signify by saying aye. Opposed will say no. No. The ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, I demand the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested, and those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered, and members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 and Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on ordering the previous question will be followed by 5-minute votes on adoption of H. Resolution 382, if ordered, motion to suspend the rules on H.R. 440 by the yeas and the nays, and motion to suspend the rules on H.R. 2244, if ordered. This will be a 15-minute vote.
Well, after a full afternoon of debate yesterday on John Boehner's plan to raise the federal debt ceiling, reduce the debt and deficit, the House is back at it again today, debating or about to debate the revised version of Speaker Boehner's plan. Covering all of this up on Capitol Hill is John Shaw with Market News International. So between yesterday, last night, and today, how was the Boehner proposal changed?
Well, he did a lot of lobbying, a lot of arm twisting, but in the end it was a decision to make a fairly significant change that has probably brought along enough Republican votes to pass it. And that change is to add the requirement that before a second installment of the debt ceiling is lifted early next year, that the House and Senate vote on and actually approve a constitutional amendment requiring a balanced budget. This would require two-thirds majorities in the House and Senate to pass. So this is throughout this debate there had been some thought that maybe the final package would require that the House and Senate vote on a balanced budget amendment. That's something that Democrats don't love but probably could live with. But the notion that the debt ceiling would not be increased unless the House and Senate actually approved it is a really substantial change in the legislation, and it's enough of a change that it has brought along a number of conservative Republicans who have been holding back their vote.
Well, why is the balanced budget amendment itself important to those conservative members in the House?
Well, I think a lot of them have, throughout their career, embraced the concept of a balanced budget amendment. A lot of experts and budget analysts are extremely skeptical of it for substantive reasons, but it's been something of a rallying cry for Republicans, particularly conservative Republicans. So this allows those people who are very, very reluctant to support an increase in the statutory debt to also vote for a balanced budget constitutional amendment.
Is the fact that the bill's back on the floor this afternoon evidence that the Speaker does now have the votes to pass it?
I think it is, yeah. It was quite a chaotic scene outside his office last night, almost as late as 11 o'clock, in which there was still some thought that he would try to vote an earlier package to have the House vote on that Thursday night. The Speaker became convinced he just did not have enough votes to do that. They are not expecting any Democrats to support their overall debt hike plan, so they had to go back to the drawing board and then brought up this balanced budget amendment to as sort of a sweetener to bring the reluctant Republicans back on board. So I think the leadership believes that they do have enough votes to pass the Boehner's plan, sending it to the Senate where it faces a very, very it's certain what's going to happen, which is that the Senate's going to reject it perhaps as early as this evening.
So the Majority Leader Reid, that was his plan yesterday. When it's done, they were going to take it up. That's still the plan?
That's still the plan. I think what he'd like to do is, as soon as the Boehner plan is sent over from the House to the Senate, to bring it up, have the Senate table it, and then life becomes interesting, because all along I think the scenario has been that once the House had sent their budget plan to the Senate, that after it was defeated by the Senate, the real negotiations would begin. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has sort of signaled that he's eager to enter into these negotiations with Reid, but it would have been unseemly for him to begin negotiating while the Boehner bill is still alive. So he's been saying publicly that he's a strong supporter of the Boehner bill and hopes the Senate passes it, but McConnell knows that the Senate is going to defeat it, and after the Senate defeats it, I think that's when the intense negotiations are going to begin, probably extending throughout the weekend and including, at least at some level, the White House.
Well, what are we to make of the news, and I think this may have, David Dreyer may have revealed this in the House Rules Committee, that David Dreyer has introduced a bill that is basically the same version as Harry Reid's bill. Why would he do that?
I'm not quite certain what he has up his sleeve. I mean, there's so much going on in terms of parliamentary maneuvering, and I think that but I'm not sure. Maybe the House also wants to go through the exercise of voting on and rejecting the Reid bill as sort of a response to the Senate voting on and rejecting the Boehner bill. That could be a kind of tit for tat that he's hoping for. So I'm not exactly sure what Dreyer has up his sleeve on that one.
Well, lastly, the President spoke this morning. Any change of his view on the plans being debated on Capitol Hill?
No, he's been pretty consistent that he really does not want the package that comes to him to require two separate votes on the debt limit. House Republicans would like to have a vote, soon to pass the first installment, perhaps by about $900 billion, and then require a second vote early next year. The president has said that just the chaos that has enveloped this particular vote for the last number of weeks would be replicated early next year, and he said that's no way to run a government. So he's adamant that not be a part. But he's also said that he thinks that the Boehner plan and the Reid plan have a lot of similar features, and that a compromise can be cobbled together in the coming days.
A very thorough update. John Shaw with Market News International. We thank you for taking the time with us.
Thank you.
the House floor right now. This is the first of a couple of procedural votes allowing the new rule for debate on the Boehner measure to come up. That measure has been changed with a requirement that the Archivist of the U.S. submit to the states for their ratification a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And as you heard John Shaw mention, that both the House and Senate not only consider but pass that balanced budget amendment. This first vote is 15 minutes. Several others will follow this as well. Well, there have been a number of briefings by Senate and House leaders today on Capitol Hill. One of those briefings, not too long ago, the House Democratic Caucus met, and the chairman of the caucus, John Larson, his vice chair, Javier Becerra, and the Budget Committee ranking member, Chris Van Hollen, spoke to reporters after the caucus meeting. We will show you their comments. They run about 20 minutes, and we'll show you as much as we can during this first vote.
Everybody set? Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm proud to be joined by the Vice Chair of our caucus, Javier Becerra, and, of course, the person who's been taking the lead for Democrats in the budget discussions, Chris Van Hollen. First of all, I want to start by saying that since Speaker Boehner walked away from the table last Friday, we've noticed that U.S. stocks and the American people have lost $405 billion. The gravity of this situation, as we continue to repeat, is something that we feel and have felt for a long time could be avoided. 18 times under President Reagan, the debt ceiling was raised. 7 times under George Bush, the debt ceiling was raised. As we have said both on the floor and here before you, defaulting on the American people is not an option. And yet, what we see unfolding in the former Republican Party is the capitulation to special interests, the special, narrow interests of one segment of a party that is controlling the very future of all Americans, impacting and being willing at all costs to take the nation to the precipice, to the cliff of disaster. Time is running out. A proposal is being put forward that we're told in the Rules Committee, even the chairman of the Rules Committee said it can't be signed by the President. And so why is it that we are putting the American people through this? People who are wondering aloud what is going on in Washington, D.C. at a time that they're crying out for help and jobs and economic security. An ideological, manufactured crisis is unfolding before us. An ideological, manufactured crisis no longer controllable by the Speaker because events have unfolded beyond his control. Washington warned about what would happen in terms of party excesses and what would happen to us if we became a nation where, not from without the threats that gather, but from within, when people seek to destroy the government itself. Imagine standing in the way of Social Security, of veterans' checks, of people's pensions, and not fully appreciating the gravity of that, only more concerned about bringing government itself down. This is a frightening time for this country, a time when the President of the United States at least has stood there as Horatio at the bridge and continues to offer calm and sanguine advice and encourages people to come together when forces here won't even allow it to happen. And whether it's a cloture vote in the Senate or whether it's the Tea Party in the House, this is a travesty that this is happening to the American people. This is a manufactured crisis. This shouldn't be happening. We should take this from the plate of the American people and get on with the business of putting this country back to work. That's where this discussion should be. And with that, let me yield to the Vice Chair of the caucus, Xavier Becerra.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I believe most Americans are trying to figure out where things stand just 4 short days before we get to this point, actually 3 short days before we get to this point that this country has never seen. And what makes it difficult for the American people to understand what's going on is that Speaker Boehner indicated a week ago that he was walking away from the negotiations because he had a better plan. Well, we've since seen that the Republicans can't agree to their own plan here in the House of Representatives, and they are clearly feuding amongst themselves. And while they've been feuding, as the chairman pointed out, we've seen Americans lose about $400 billion worth of value. In 5 business days, Americans have lost about $400 billion worth of value in their wealth. That's about half of what the Republicans were hoping to save in their 10-year plan. 5 days versus 5 years of a 10-year plan. That's what happens when you feud and you don't do your work. The failure of the Republicans is costing not just Republicans and their party, it's costing Americans a great deal of money. But we've seen this before, and we've seen it described before when the tail wags the dog. In this case, we see the tail wagging the elephant. And it's unfortunate that Republicans don't seem to be listening to the American public. The American public has said over and over again, get this done, do it bipartisanly, and make sure it's balanced. And in the process, don't make Social Security, which hasn't added a single cent to these deficits, pay for this deficit reduction. Don't make Medicare recipients lose their Medicare benefits to pay for protecting the tax loopholes for special interests. And we understand that today Republicans have admitted that they can't pass the bill that we're debating on the floor right now. None other than the chairman of the Rules Committee, David Dreyer, who is managing the debate on this bill, has said he understands that this bill is going nowhere. So 3 short days before we're told we may plunge into the abyss, and Republicans are debating a bill which the chairman of their Rules Committee is saying he understands that this bill will go nowhere. Clearly, the tail is wagging the elephant today.
I want to thank my colleagues here for their leadership in the caucus, and just pick up where my friend Xavier Becerra left off with this comment about the tail wagging the elephant. Because I think in the last 24 hours, we've confirmed what many people suspected, which is that the Tea Party Republicans may be a noisy and effective protest movement, but they're unfit to govern. They're unfit to govern, and it is time for Speaker Boehner to do what he called for himself some time ago, which is to have that adult moment. And unfortunately, rather than work to reach across the aisle and form true bipartisan compromise for the good of the country, he's moving in the wrong direction. He's now taken the bill, which was unacceptable and won't pass in its original form, back to the Rules Committee to make it even more extreme, to cater again to the Tea Party wing of the Republican Party. That's not going to get us where we need to go, and the American people watching this process know that. You now have the House Republicans having walked out of the Biden talks, 2 times out of the talks with the President. They rejected the proposal put forward by the Republican leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, originally. Then they rejected their own Speaker's proposal. But instead of working across the aisle to solve the problem, unfortunately the Speaker's made that problem even worse and is taking this in the wrong direction. This is, as my colleague said, a totally self-inflicted wound we're inflicting on the American people every day. It is a manufactured crisis. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why are they doing this to the country? Why are they playing kamikaze pilot with the American economy? Their answer, what they tell you, is they got to reduce the deficit. That's what they say, but if you look at their actions, that's just not true. Because every time someone's put forward a balanced deficit reduction plan, they've said no. And it turns out their real objective is not to reduce the deficit. Because if that was your objective, you'd be willing to eliminate 1 penny in subsidies for the gas companies for the purpose of deficit reduction. We've challenged them. We want them to put up their hand. The first Republican that says they're willing to have 1 penny from closing tax loopholes go to deficit reduction, please come talk to us. If you're really interested in deficit reduction, you'd be willing to ask the big oil companies to stop taking all this taxpayer money. But they haven't. That's not their objective. Their objective, as my colleagues have said, is to manufacture this crisis, try and impose on the American people a very extreme agenda that involves ending the Medicare guarantee, slashing Medicaid, slashing education. That's what they're about, not about deficit reduction. When they get serious about deficit reduction in a balanced way, we hope they'll come talk to us.
Thank you, Chris. Let me say that we concluded our caucus, and we started our caucus, with the unity that I think demonstrates the importance of this nature to the of everything that's unfolding to the American people. And that unity stems from our defense of Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. Let me throw it open to questions. Thank you very much.
Beyond all this theater, are you hearing of any serious talks going on either between the Senate and the House or among Senate leaders?
Well, we're not privy, of course, to the discussions that take place in the inner sanctum over in the Senate, but we hear there are discussions that are going on, and I don't know if Chris would want to comment on that further. Or
I think you covered it. We hear there there may be the beginning of discussions between Senator Reid and Senator McConnell, but we're not familiar with the details.
Yes.
So the House Republicans are now renewing this push for a balanced budget amendment to be passed before the second stage of this.
A totally realistic proposal, huh?
Raised, but
Did you like the first version?
Well, it sounds like from the proposal, though, that they're open to the balanced budget amendments that were passed by the House in the late 1990s. Does that change the calculation?
Let's call this for what it is, you know. And the initial question is: aside from more theater, this is just more theater. And with the theater is even a further move to the right in a more extreme position. And you can put wings on this pig, but it still won't fly.
To follow up that, do you see any political motivation to this? Does the balanced budget amendment just essentially give House Republicans an issue to talk about from now until the 2012 election?
Well, I think if you're a Tea Party member, you've got to be, and listen, they come here as in believing that they are patriots, and they're full of the pledges that they have taken throughout the campaign. But here, I think they've forgotten, as Chris pointed out, that we pledge allegiance to this nation, not to Grover Norquist or to any other tax pledge. And where they're taking this country is unprecedented. It's never happened before. And while they may take a great deal of pride in that, the reality is the reality that looms for the American people, best stated by a constituent of mine who said, do they not understand that we're in the dark abyss of uncertainty? And that's true in global markets, national markets, in our business community, but most importantly, for households. I mean, the American people do not deserve this. They deserve far better from their government.
Sure, if I could just say one constitutional amendment, because, you know, our Republican colleagues are trotting this out because it sounds good on its surface. It's really a way of just passing the buck. And what's interesting is our Republican colleagues who complain about activist judges making decisions. The reality is, at the end of the day, you would be asking judges to enforce the balanced budget amendment. Do they want federal judges to be deciding whether to cut Medicare or to raise taxes? This is just a device to pass the buck and delay confronting the real challenge, which is all of us getting together to hammer this out in a balanced way. And so I know it's a nice-sounding thing. We encourage the American people to take a close look at what it really does, because it's a way for the members to escape responsibility and ultimately lay it on the doorstep of a federal judge. That's not what our founders anticipated. The founders expected the Congress and the President to deal with the budget, not to pass the buck to a federal judge to raise taxes or cut Medicare or education.
Can I add something? James, correct me if I'm wrong. 11,000 times? Since 1789, I wanted to check on this. The constitutional amendments in 1789. We've had 11,000 attempts to amend the Constitution since 1789. 27 amendments have been passed. 10 of them in one shot when the Bill of Rights. And so we're now hearing that Republicans may want to, 3 days before they plunge us into the economic abyss, propose the 11,001st constitutional amendment so that in less than 3 days we pass that when it's taken over 230 years to pass 27 out of the 11,000 that were proposed. That's the height of ridicule that I think you can say we can take these efforts by those who have not yet gotten serious.
237 and the nays are 185, and the previous question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and those opposed say no. The ayes have it, the ayes have it, the resolution is adopted. Gentleman from...
On that I request the yeas and the nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring the vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
The House is voting on what's called the same-day rule. This is one of the steps for more debate and consideration of this revised Boehner proposal, the debt and deficit proposal of raising the federal debt ceiling. And this, basically what they did in the Rules Committee is they modified his amendment by including the adoption of and passage of a balanced budget amendment and sending it to the states for ratification. That's the change that's been made to Speaker Boehner's proposal.
last vote, the yeas are 236 and the nays are 186. And the resolution is adopted. And without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Smith, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 440 as amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered, and the clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 440, a bill to provide for the establishment of the Special Envoy to promote religious freedom of religious minorities in the Near East and South Central Asia.
Question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
A couple of more votes in this series, and then back to more consideration of the debt ceiling and deficit reduction plan, the modified plan of Speaker Boehner's. This bill was debated earlier. This is a bill that would create a special envoy for religious freedoms, religious minorities in South Asia. It's a 5-minute vote. One more 5-minute vote will follow this. Again, the change that was made in the Rules Committee on the Boehner proposal would make a debt limit increase conditional on congressional passage of a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. The rule would provide for automatic adoption of an amendment that would hinge a second $1.6 trillion debt limit increase on congressional passage of that balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, as well as enactment as a still-to-be-written $1.8 trillion deficit reduction package as originally drafted. That the reporting of Congressional Quarterly.
On this vote, the yeas are 402 and the nays are 20. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Finished business is on the question on suspending the rules and passing H.R. 2244, which the clerk will report by title.
2244, a bill to designate the facility of the United States Postal Service located at 67 Castle Street in Geneva, New York, as the Corporal Steve Blaine Riccioni Post Office.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? So many are as in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed say no. In the opinion of the chairs, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The gentleman from Texas.
Madam Speaker, on that I ask the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
Last night, after the Boehner debt bill stalled in the House moved on to a number of bills renaming post offices. This is one of those bills. This is a 5-minute vote and the last in this series. Since last night, the House Rules Committee has met to alter the Boehner proposal. We spoke to a Capitol Hill reporter a short while ago about that and what might be ahead. John Shaw with Market News International. So between yesterday, last night, and today, how was the Boehner proposal changed?
Well, he did a lot of lobbying, a lot of arm twisting, but in the end it was a decision to make a fairly significant change that has probably brought along enough Republican votes to pass it. And that change is to add the requirement that before a second installment of the debt ceiling is lifted early next year, that the House and Senate vote on and actually approve a constitutional amendment requiring a balanced budget. This would require two-thirds majorities in the House and Senate to pass. So this is throughout this debate there had been some thought that maybe the final package would require that the House and Senate vote on a balanced budget amendment. That's something that Democrats don't love, but probably could live with. But the notion that the debt ceiling would not be increased unless the House and Senate actually approved it is a really substantial change in the legislation, and it's enough of a change that it has brought along a number of conservative Republicans who had been holding back their vote.
Well, why is the balanced budget amendment itself important to those conservative members in the House?
Well, I think a lot of them have, throughout their career, embraced the concept of a balanced budget amendment. A lot of experts and budget analysts are extremely skeptical of it for substantive reasons, but it's been something of a rallying cry for Republicans, particularly conservative Republicans. So this allows those people who are very, very reluctant to support an increase in the statutory debt to also vote for a balanced budget constitutional amendment.
Is the fact that the bill's back on the floor this afternoon evidence that the Speaker does now have the votes to pass it?
I think it is, yeah. It was quite a chaotic scene outside his office last night, almost as late as 11 o'clock, in which there was still some thought that he would try to vote an earlier package to have the House vote on that Thursday night. The Speaker became convinced he just did not have enough votes to do that. They are not expecting any Democrats to support their overall debt hike plan. So they had to go back to the drawing board and then brought up this balanced budget amendment as sort of a sweetener to bring the reluctant Republicans back on board. So I think the leadership believes that they do have enough votes to pass the Boehner's plan, sending it to the Senate where it faces a very, very it's certain what's going to happen, which is that the Senate's going to reject it perhaps as early as this evening.
So the Majority Leader Reid, that was his plan yesterday. When it's done, they were going to take it up. That's still the plan?
That's still the plan. I think what he'd like to do is, as soon as the Boehner plan is sent over from the House to the Senate to bring it up, have the Senate table it, and then life becomes interesting because all along I think the scenario has been that once the House had sent their budget plan to the Senate, that after it was defeated by the Senate, the real negotiations would begin. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has sort of signaled that he's eager to enter into these negotiations with Reid, but it would have been unseemly for him to begin negotiating while the Boehner bill is still alive. So he's been saying publicly that he's a strong supporter of the Boehner bill and hopes the Senate passes it, but McConnell knows that the Senate is going to defeat it, and after the Senate defeats it, I think that's when the intense negotiations are going to begin, probably extending throughout the weekend and including, at least at some level, the White House.
Well, what are we to make of the news, and I think this may have, David Dreyer may have revealed this in the House Rules Committee, that David Dreyer has introduced a bill that is basically the same version as Harry Reid's bill. Why would he do that?
I'm not quite certain what he has up his sleeve. I mean, there's so much going on in terms of parliamentary maneuvering, and I think that but I'm not sure. Maybe the House also wants to go through the exercise of voting on and rejecting the Reid bill as sort of a response to the Senate voting on and rejecting the Boehner bill. That could be a kind of tit for tat that he's hoping for. So I'm not exactly sure what Dreyer has up his sleeve on that one.
Well, lastly, the President spoke this morning. Any change of his view on the plans being debated on Capitol Hill?
No, he's been pretty consistent.
The nays are 418 and the nays are 1. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Should I ask? For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that my name be removed from the list of co-sponsors for H.R. 451.
Without objection. I'll give him a few minutes. Should I try to bring it to order? The House will be in order. The House will come to order. Members are advised to take their conversations off the floor. House will be in order. The House will be in order. Members and staff are advised to take their conversations off the floor. Members are asked to vacate the well. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
To ask that the House will be in order, Madam Speaker.
The House will be in order. Members are advised to take their conversations off the floor. The House will be in order. The House will come to order. Members are advised to take their conversations off the floor. Gentleman from California.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. By direction of the Committee on Rules, I call up House Resolution 383 and ask for its immediate consideration.
And the clerk will report the resolution.
House Calendar Number 64, House Resolution 383, resolved that during further consideration of the bill, Senate 627, to establish the Commission on Freedom of Information Act processing delays as amended, pursuant to House Resolution 375, the further amendment printed in the report of the Committee on Rules accompanying this resolution shall be considered as adopted.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 1 hour, and if he'll hold on, I would ask the House to come to order.
I'm holding on, Madam Speaker.
The House will be in order. Gentleman from California.
To use your words, I'll continue to hold on for a moment. I still hear a lot of...
Gentleman's correct. The House is not in order. The House will come to order. Gentleman from California.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. For the purpose of debate only, I'll yield the customary 30 minutes to my very good friend, the distinguished ranking minority member of the Committee on Rules, the gentlewoman from Rochester, Ms. Slaughter, pending which I yield myself such time as I might consume and ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks, and all time that I'll be yielding will be for debate purposes only.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
And, Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks on the measure before us.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, it's now, as I began yesterday when we launched the debate, it was exactly 3 o'clock. It's 1 minute after 4 on Friday, July 29th, and as we stand, as I am, or sit here, as many of our colleagues are, we're exactly 4 days away from that August 2nd date, at which time the Department of Treasury has calculated that the federal government will run out of money. At that point, we as a country will face impossible choices about what obligations to default on first. And, Madam Speaker, the House is not in order, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman's correct. The House will come to order. The gentleman deserves to be heard. The House will come to order. Members are advised to please take their conversations off the floor. The House will be in order. The House will be in order.